Good morning. How we doing today? My name is James Sweeney, aka Split Suit, and today we're going to talk about bluffing in live cash games. Now, some people, when they hear that, they think, should we really be bluffing a tremendous amount in these games, especially if you're playing like 1-2 or 1-3? Oftentimes you're playing against not the best players in the world, and as such, bluffing can be a little futile. Of course, that means you should be value betting a tremendous amount, but oftentimes bluffing can be a little more tricky. Sure, totally fair point, but there are still plenty of good opportunities to bluff, and if you're not at least looking for them between sessions and also in real time, you're leaving a lot of win rate on the table. Now, the nice thing is that when it comes to bluffing, there are really two major concepts you need to be focusing on. One is the underlying math, essentially how often does that bluff need to actually work, and then two, thinking about your opponent, how often are they going to fold, and will they fold often enough to allow your bluff to work and be profitable. But instead of getting bogged down in theory land, let's actually go through an example together and see how this all works. Alright, so let's say that we're playing 5-10, the cutoff open raises to 30, and you call on the button with ace-4 suited. The flop is 10-6-3, giving you a nut flush draw. They check, you decide to fire for 40, they call. Turn is a queen of diamonds, they check, you decide to barrel for 125, they call again. River is a brick 5, and in a 405 pot after they check, you decide to overbet for 650. Alright, so at this point I want to just pause here and really focus on this river bet. I don't want to focus on the flop decision, turn decision, the exact sizes used on those streets, or even the pre-flop call. Let's just use this as a fixed example and really focus on the river decision and look at bluffing through this lens. And again, we're not trying to get so focused on a single line, a single hand, a single size, rather teach you the methodology so that way you can go through and actually analyze your own hands better and have a better idea on how to actually come up with better decisions both off table and in real time. So the first number we need is break-even percentage. Very, very simple number, but bluffing revolves entirely around this number, and it's extremely simple. It's just risk divided by risk plus reward. And in this situation, our risk is the size of our bet, which is 650, and the reward is the pot that we're fighting for, or 405. So you can do this math very simply in your head, and the more you do it between sessions, the easier it is to estimate it in real time, be plus or minus a couple percentage points. If you need a calculator, I have one for free. I'll leave a link in the description box down below, but in it we can just simply fire in a couple of numbers. So if we go over here and we fire in our risk, again 650, reward pot we're fighting for is 405, break-even percentage is 62%. So the way that we can use this number is that we can think, okay, how often is our opponent going to fold? And if they fold more often than that break-even percentage, we make profit. That's very, very simple. If they fold less than that, the bet is not auto-profitable and is probably losing money to some extent. And obviously, the less they fold, the worse it is for your bluff. The more they fold, the more profitable it is for your bluff. All right, so now that we have the break-even percentage, the next important number we have to get is an estimation on how often we think our opponent's going to fold. The more often they fold, the better for us. So what I would suggest is that when you're doing this kind of analysis and exploration between sessions is do it against 3 different kind of continuance ranges. A much tighter, more nitty one, kind of something in the middle, and then also something very loose and splashy. Obviously, if it's a profitable bluff against the splashy person, all the better for bluffing against the tighter players as well, but this gives you a really nice way of studying a single spot and getting more exercises and reps out of it. So let's do that in this spot. We'll play everything into Flopzilla Pro. So on the left, you see the range that I've assigned in this exact situation. We have the board right here in the center, and then we also have our hand right over here. We are in single player mode. All is well so far. And now let's make some basic assumptions. Again, we overbet here for 650. How often or with what hands do we think our opponent is going to continue with? So if we make the assumption that they're only going to continue with a very, very strong range of hands, let's just say they're going to continue with 2 pair or better, well, they have that a whopping 12% of the time, which means the inverse of that, the 88%, is how often they're going to be folding. So given that, we have a spot where the break-even percentage is 62%. We think our opponent is going to be folding 88%. That is higher than the break-even percentage, and as such, it is an auto-profitable bluff. So everything looks really, really good there. Now, of course, that doesn't necessarily mean that a different bet size wouldn't be more profitable. Just because you find something that's plus EV doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be optimal by any stretch of the imagination, but when you can start finding more and more and more plus EV plays, that's really, really good for your win rate at the end of the day. But keep in mind that bluffs tend to look really, really good when your opponent is going to continue very, very tightly and fold everything else. If we go back to Flopzilla Zilla Pro and mess with things just a little bit. Let's say that our opponent is actually going to always continue with the over pairs and always continue with top pair plus. Well, if that's the case, we notice they're continuing, 47% of the time, folding 53%. 53 is lower than the 62 break-even percentage, and as such, this would not be an auto-profitable size based upon our opponent's continuance range. So definitely make sure to keep that in mind, and obviously if you include even more hands in your opponent's range, think they're going to continue with even the 10 or anything like that, then this is a situation where the bluff itself is getting worse and worse and worse, more and more negative EV, and as such, definitely something you should not be taking, at least for this given size. So if you take nothing else away from this video, just take these two things. One, the number we need to focus on the absolute most is that break-even percentage. Very, very simple. Risk divided by risk plus reward. Practice with this for like 10 minutes a day for like a week. You'll have it hammered down, no problem. And the second number is definitely trickier, but it's extremely, extremely important. And that's estimating how often your opponent is actually going to fold against the bet that you choose. So if you think your opponent's going to fold a tremendous amount, cool, you found a profitable bluff. If you think they're not going to fold all that often and is much lower than the break-even percentage number, then it's not going to be an auto-profitable bluff. Now, there are a tremendous amount of extra variables to consider, given the size you actually use, right? Overbetting in this exact situation, is this a size that actually encourages more or less continuance from your opponents? The bet size itself is kind of an interesting sliding scale, right? As you go bigger, you need it to work more often, but it might actually get more folds from your opponents, versus the smaller number needs to work less often, but will probably get more continuance from your opponent. And there are also different considerations when you're bluffing on earlier streets. There are more streets to play after that if your opponent does continue. You may find spots where your opponent doesn't fold often enough to have an auto-profitable bluff, say on the flop, but you think your opponent's going to fold so often to a double barrel that the overall play itself can actually be plus EV. And actually in this situation, because we're on the river and we do have some semblance of equity, there is actually some equity value in checking back, so your EV is not going to be zero when you check back. It actually is going to be a little bit higher, so you have to compare the EV of checking behind versus the EV of actually making your bluff. But again, that's getting a little ahead of ourselves, and it's not necessarily the scope of this video, taking a broad basic look at bluffing in live cash games, but this is how you do it. And just for the record, the overall model, the formula, all of this stuff applies to online cash games, tournaments, everything as well, so it's not like it's exclusive for live cash games. But the only way you're going to get stronger with this skill set is by working on it, practicing with it between sessions. Again, some of the basic stuff like the underlying break-even percentage, you can work on that in like a week or so and have it totally memorized for like a large chunk of bet sizes that you would use, thinking about your bet size as a percentage of pot. And a lot of this kind of work is stuff you can again offload between sessions, and is actually something that is all included in my live cash game workbook. This exact hand that we talked about today, boom, right there on page 55. You could do this entire thing, follow along with it, as well as many, many other examples, and not just auto profit betting and bluffing, but also thinking about raising and a ton of other stuff as well. Pot geometry, stack tracking, thinking about re-raise, open sizing, straddle pots, multi-way bluffing, multi-way pots in general, and a whole bunch more. If this sounds up your alley and you really want to start working on the technical side of the game, especially knowing what you should be studying between sessions, what the highest value exercises you could be doing are, make sure to get this workbook today, splitsuit.com/live, to look for the live cash game workbook, learn more about it, pick up your copy. And if you don't have Flopzilla Pro, there is a version that has that attached to it. And if you prefer paperbacks, you can always grab it off Amazon as well. Link is again splitsuit.com/live, LIVE. But that's going to wrap it for this one. Hopefully you enjoyed. If you have any comments or questions, please do not hesitate to let me know. Otherwise, I'll see you back shortly with a brand new video. And in the meantime, good luck out there and happy grinding.